The relationship between China and Africa is not something that started yesterday. Yes, and it's not something that is ending tomorrow. It's something that came to stay.
You're in America's neighborhood because at its closest point, it's only 70 kilometers from Cuba to the United States. 7 military US bases are here in the Caribbean. But people are beginning to wonder whether you're looking further east. And we had a question on social media, Prime Minister, which says, I honestly would like to know why we in Barbados are so ingratiated with China. Why are we in so deep with China? So are you swapping one superpower for another?
Well, once again, I regret that the person who asked the question doesn't know our history. In 1977, Barbados established relations with the People's Republic of China. This is 44 years ago. And therefore, to suggest that we are now seeking to ingratiate ourselves with China means that you don't understand where we've come from or what we're doing. Any country that lives in this world today, to exist in this world, ought to have relations with every country. And China is clearly a global power. And for us not to have a relationship with China, even if we didn't have one 47 years ago, would be foolish.
But you've been very complimentary about China. You had a phone conversation with President Xi Jinping recently. You said this is all about strengthening the relationship with China. In 2019, the government signed up to the BRI, the big infrastructure projects and so on. And some people are suspicious. They think that China wants to buy the family silver.
Well, let's put it this way. I've also been very complimentary of the Americans and the British and the Canadians. So that for me not to be complimentary of China seems unusual. And similarly, for persons who believe that because we want to be friendly with China means that we are a pawn, tells us what they think about us in the first place. Because we are capable of being, as our first Prime Minister said, friends of all and satellites of none.
But it's not just Barbados that's moving closer to China, it's the whole of the Caribbean. I mean,
it's the whole
investment
world.
From China has gone up many folds.
But so is the whole world. If I look correctly, I think the Chinese hold a large percentage of assets within the United States of America and a large amount of their treasuries as well. So for you to focus on the Caribbean or Africa with China without recognizing the role that China is playing in Europe or in the North Atlantic countries is a bit disingenuous and really reflects more that we are seen as pawns, regrettably, rather than countries with equal capacity to determine our destiny and to be part and parcel of that global conversation to fight the global issues of the day like climate and the pandemic.
All right, well, that's put me in my place, hasn't it?
No, not at all,
Zidane. Thank you.
Not at all, my dear.
That's all right, thank you.
Our relationship was first started in an act of courage. We felt as a nation that the Chinese civilization and the Chinese people were worthy of our respect, and we were able, therefore, to meet with you in a respectful way, respecting each other's sovereignty. And therefore, respect, tolerance, courage, those are the words, solidarity, that come to mind when I think about our relationship.
Right.
That friendship has endured across almost 5 decades. I smile because I was merely 11 years old when that relationship started. And I find myself now, many decades later, expressing the same appreciation and wanting to reflect the same mutual respect. But the commitment to seeing people and to putting people first in all that we do has been a driver in our relationship. The treatment that your country has reflected in how it treats to large and small nations is also worthy of respect. For small nations, that matters. Because in too many things globally, we're told that we either don't have enough power or enough to be able to command market attention. Particularly when I give you the example of during COVID. When some could get and some couldn't get, the majority who could not get were small nations. Because what we needed was too small to command market size. And what we saw were large countries imposing export restrictions and making it difficult for other countries to access critical pieces of equipment that were thought to have been needed at the time. So I want to salute the way in which your country has always seen small states and worked in a respectful way with them to be able to achieve common objectives.
Yeah. If we allow it, and if it's going to bring a good thing, benefit to Africans, it's good when we allow it. But it's not something that started yesterday, you know. Now, here is something you need to consider. The influx of Chinese investments in Africa, the trade and the presence in Africa has sparked widespread debate, while some of us Africans and other people outside Africa view it with a lot of skepticism. There is substantial evidence to suggest that the relationship between China and Africa has brought significant benefits to the continent's growth and development, you know. Now, personally, with regards to the video we are going to react to, we are going to explore the positive impacts of Chinese engagement in Africa, which is supported by real-life examples highlighting various aspects of this evolving relationship between Africa and China. When I say Africa, I also refer to the African diaspora, you know. When I say Africa, I refer to the black people. Not all black people are Africans. I came to know that, you know. We have black people all the way in Australia. Australia is very far, very, very far from Africa. But there's still black people there, original people, you know. And now, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mama Mia Motley, was in this interview with a BBC journalist, and the BBC journalist was, you know how they are, you know, they are always forcing things, being arrogant, forcing and trying to win, you know, they're trying to corner you and then you win, and then they win, you know, but they failed this time, they failed because they told Mia Motley, why are you having a relationship? Why is your country, which is Barbados, having a relationship with China? China, which is not as good. China does not have good relationship with the West. It's not good. It's not new news right now. Now, based on the interview and the answers that Mama Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, was able to give, here is why I think relationship with China and African countries and African diaspora, or even the countries in Caribbean, is beneficial. Now, economic growth and infrastructure development, you know, most of the major roads, even here in Kenya, have been built by the Chinese, no doubt. The airport, the schools, the hospital, literally all infrastructure have been made by the Chinese. And so we can't doubt that, you know, we can't doubt. It's not only in Africa, it's also in the Caribbean. The Chinese came and took us as equals. We were equal partners, not like the West. The West always just placed sanctions on us. The West placed instructions, follow this, follow that. You don't do this, you don't get that. But China, no. China said, we are equal partners, 50-50 was the agreement. So we are told, you know. Now, one of the most tangible benefits of Chinese involvement in Africa is the massive infrastructure projects undertaken across the continent and beyond the continent. Through initiatives like the Belt Road and the initiative which is and the Forum of China-Africa Cooperation, China has invested billions of dollars in building roads, railways, ports, and other critical infrastructure. For example, the Mombasa-Nairobi Highway in Kenya and the Standard Gauge Railway in Kenya has been financed and constructed by Chinese companies, you know. China has transformed transportation connectivity, boosting trade and economic activity along these routes. We have the Addis Ababa Railway. We have the highway in South Africa. We have the BRT system in South Africa. We have the electric buses in South Africa. We have the electric buses in Uganda. We have the roads in Nigeria, the malls in Nigeria. These things have been built by the Chinese. If it were the West, they would have taken so much from Africa and given so little to Africa. Just as I said before, the Chinese take us as equals, but these other people who are the West, no, they don't. They don't. And that's what I'm thinking. To some extent, the Chinese are really, really good in terms of trade. Yes. They are here to offer us trade and not aid. We want trade, not aid. Now, the second category is job creation and skills transfer. Chinese investment in Africa have led to the creation of employment opportunities for local population. Chinese companies often hire local workers for their projects, providing them with valuable skills and training. Additionally, through technology transfer and knowledgeable sharing, African workers have the opportunity to learn from the Chinese expertise in various industries. For instance, Huawei, the device company, is a leading Chinese telecommunication company which has established training centers in several African countries, equipping local techniques with the skills needed to build and maintain digital infrastructures. You know, that's the second one. The third one I would say is trade and market access. The Chinese have a very, very large trade. They have a huge human capital. China is the country with the highest population, followed by India. Yes, China has the highest population. And that's why you see many of these big companies from the West, they establish some of their branches in China because the labor is cheaper. You get me? Like, for example, this one is a Samsung. And this Samsung tablet, it's written made in China. We know that Samsung is not a Chinese company. It's a South Korean company. But it's made in China. You know? The assembling has been made in China by the Chinese. Now, they have a human resource capital. And that's a really good thing to have, you know? Now, in terms of trade and market access, China has emerged as Africa's largest trading partner. It's been offering access to its vast market and contributing to the continent's export diversification. African countries export a wide range of commodities to China, including minerals, agricultural products, and oil. In return, China provides manufactured goods, machinery, and technology, supporting Africa's industrialization efforts. For instance, Ethiopia leather industry has experienced significant growth due to Chinese investment in tanneries and manufacturing facilities, leading to increased exports to international markets, including China. You get me? Another one would be, I told you, China has a huge market. It has a huge market for produce. Now, if China is your market, I'm telling you, you're going to make sales. You're really going to make big, big sales because there's so many and demand is so high. When there's so many, the demand is so high. When the demand is so high, equal to good finances. You get me? Now, to conclude, the presence of China in Africa has proven to be beneficial for the continent's growth and development on multiple fronts, from infrastructure development and job creation to trade expansion and technological innovation. The relationship between China and Africa has brought tangible benefits that have helped propel Africa towards greater economic prosperity. However, it is essential for African governments to ensure that these partnerships are conducted transparently, sustainably, and in ways that prioritize the long-term interests of their citizens and the continent as a whole. You know, through strategic cooperation and mutual respect, China and Africa can continue to foster a relationship that contributes to shared prosperity and development. I've kind of noticed I was saying more of Africa, but remember, I told you, when I say Africa, I don't mean Africa alone. I mean the black people. I mean the black African diaspora. Any person who is black. You know? Now, the term Africa is just a blanket word, you know. I understand that not all black people are African, as I said before, but listening to Mama Mia Motley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, defend China and defend the benefits we are getting from China is therapeutic. It's a nice thing because we are able to acknowledge that indeed we were suffering at some point, and it was China that brought us some help by viewing us as partners. China has not placed any sanctions on any African country. The West has always placed sanctions on African countries. And when you look at this is not good for business. The Chinese understand the laws of business. They know if they want to maximize their profit, they need to ensure that they are in good relationship with the Africans. It reminds me with the slave trade period, when slave trade was heading to its end during the French Revolution. A man came and a man said, free labor is more productive than forced labor. Yes, free labor is more productive than forced labor. I don't need to explain to you the importance of mutual respect, the importance of equality in trading